The problem is broader than just the Muslim Brotherhood. The problem is terrorism. The problem is terror financing. The problem is harboring individuals who are wanted for financing terrorism. The problem is not bringing them to justice. The problem is interfering in the affairs of other countries and trying to destabilize them. You don't do this if you want people to deal with you as a good neighbor. We in Saudi Arabia have a problem. We acknowledged it, and we dealt with it. We have zero tolerance when it comes to extremism. We have zero tolerance when it comes to terror financing. We have revamped our charities. We have changed our banking systems. We have looked at our education system. We have stopped extremists from preaching, and we punish them when they do. That's recognizing you have a problem and dealing with it. The Qataris are still in denial. They don't think they have a problem, so they talk about different things and they try to shift the subject. We're under siege. There is no siege. Do you see Saudi airplanes flying over Qatari airspace? Do you see Saudi warships blockading Qatari ports? No. It's just a boycott. We do not want to deal with you so long as you continue with this behavior. If you want to be a good neighbor, and we hope you will be, then change your behavior and do the right thing. We have no interest in punishing Qatar. We want Qatar to change its ways. The problem we have is we have a country that's in denial. They don't believe they have a problem, and as a consequence, they don't believe they have to fix it. But what have the Qataris done since we took the steps that we took? They have signed an MOU with the US on terror financing, which they had refused in the past. They have now American Treasury officials in their banking system, which they had refused in the past. They've changed their laws in order to allow the introduction of evidence provided by foreign governments, which they had refused in the past. They have begun to, as a consequence of this action, Hamas gave up the Gaza Strip and handed it over to the Palestinian Authority. This is all good. And so we expect, as this goes forward, that the Qataris will recognize that they have a problem and they will go into introspection and deal with the problem. This is not about humiliating anyone. This is about getting somebody to do the right thing.
But you would argue then, if I'm trying to hear this carefully, some progress has been made, if not enough. Is that what I heard through that list?
It depends on what they do now that they've changed their laws. Are they going to convict people and imprison them? What are they going to do with the Muslim Brotherhood individuals who are fugitives from Egypt? Are they going to keep them there, or are they going to deport them? So there are a number of things that the Qataris have to take, and the most important one is this problem cannot be fixed unless there is an acknowledgement that there is a problem that needs to be fixed. It all lies with Qatar. We are saying no to supporting terrorism, no to funding terrorism, no to harboring fugitives and wanted terrorists, no to incitement and hate speech, no to the interference in the affairs of other countries. We find it unacceptable that media platforms would be used to justify suicide bombings by senior religious figures. That doesn't help when we're trying to combat extremism and terrorism. We find it unacceptable that terror financiers who are on United Nations lists and US lists, forget our list, are operating freely in Qatar. That's not acceptable. And so we took the steps that we took. We find it unacceptable that the Qataris would provide citizenship to citizens of other countries so they can leave their countries and come to Qatar. You don't do this. You don't engage in efforts to destabilize countries in the region. What interest is gained in doing so by the Qataris? We came to a point in 2013, 2014 where we said enough, and we recalled our ambassadors. The Qataris agreed to take a series of steps, and they didn't implement. So now we said enough is enough. You've got to change your ways if you want to be a normal country. This is dangerous for you, as well as it is for us. The Qatar issue is very small. It's a non-issue. We are dealing with huge issues. We're dealing with transforming a country. We're dealing with transforming a region. We're dealing with the challenge of Iran. We're dealing with the challenge of extremism and terrorism. We're dealing with Syria. We're dealing with helping Iraq. We're dealing with Yemen. We're dealing with stabilizing Libya. All these issues are much, much more important than Qatar. The Qatar issue is very small. The Qataris have to take certain steps and change their behavior and stop doing things that undermine what we all are trying to do, and things will return to normal. But the notion that this is hampering the Gulf or helping Iran, or we don't subscribe to. The issue of Iran being stronger vis-à-vis the GCC, quite the contrary. I think the other side, if we can change Qatar's behavior, we in the GCC will be much stronger in confronting not only Iran, but extremism and terrorism.